back to another book video. Oh, I just love this time of the week. This time I've got myself an iced drink. I've got myself an iced coffee. I chat too much in these videos, completely normally neglect my hot tea or hot coffee. And then by the end, I'm left with a very sad drink. And honestly, I'm not sure there's anything sadder or probably more disgusting than cold tea. It's not the one. So I figured if I forget all about my coffee today, at least it will still be cold, as it was always intended. Anyway, today we are halfway through the year. I have to be honest, I always thought that halfway through the year was in June, but I Googled it and halfway through the year was actually the 2nd of July. So we're only about a week late on this, but I love watching these mid-year / full year like book tag videos on YouTube. I just think they're so fun. For this video, I am using the questions that actually Sarah, who in my opinion, Sarah is the queen of booktube. She is queen of the bookish content. I am using the questions that she used in her book tag mid-year video. If you haven't seen that, go watch it. I loved it. I just love hearing her perspective on books. I feel like our book taste is similar. It's not like exactly the same, but it's similar. But to be honest, I love watching these videos even of people who have completely different book tastes to me. They're just so fun. Let's start off with statistics. If you follow me on Goodreads, you know that I've currently got a book goal for the year of reading 90 books. I've talked a little bit about book goals on my channel before and the concept of setting like a volume of a reading challenge for yourself. And honestly, it's such a personal thing and it's just a fun thing. If I don't hit the 90 books, I really won't mind. 90 is lots of books for me compared to my previous reading years. I do also have the privilege of, I feel like I have quite a lot of spare time to be able to do a lot of reading. I know that 90 books is also not that many to some other people. I see some people's reading goals of like 175 books or 200 books, which is just crazy to me, but so cool if you have the time and are able to do that. But anyway, all that to say, you definitely do not have to set yourself an actual reading challenge or reading goal. I set one because I genuinely think it's so fun and I love being able to tick books off towards my goal, and like I said, if I don't hit that goal, I really don't mind. It's just something super fun to be able to work towards. So according to Goodreads, which is where I track my reading challenge, I've currently read 44 books this year out of my 90 goal, which means that I'm currently 2 books behind my goal, which I'm very happy with, to be honest. I think I could potentially push my reading goal slightly higher for the year, but I'll probably just leave it at 90, only because I feel like in the autumn winter period, especially in the UK where it's just so dark for so much of the day and the weather's so bad, literally all I want to do for like those 4 months of the year plus, I just literally want to curl up with a book on the sofa. So I just feel like I get a lot more reading in the second half of this year than I would have in the first half, just because as soon as the sun comes out, I just want to be outside and doing things and making the most of it, because it's so fleeting. Especially it feels like it this summer as well, like the second the sun comes out, I just dive outside. So I'm going to leave my goal at 90, but I've read 44 books so far. I'm only 2 behind my reading challenge, which feels very good. Okay, let's dive into the very first question. We are starting off strong with a very bold question. What is the best book of the year that you've read so far in 2024? For me, there could be only one answer, and that has to be A Court of Mist and Fury. Like so many of us, or so many people in the book talk, booktube, bookstagram world, I know that this is the series that sparked so many of our reading journeys. It was the same for me, what can I say? I'm basic, I fit in with the masses. Starting ACOTAR was just what has jump-started this entire thing for me, and this book in particular, which is book 2 in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J Maas, was just, it had everything to me. Fundamentally, I am a romance reader and I love reading romance, and to be honest, to me this is just a phenomenal romance book. And for those of you that also love reading fantasy, reading a romance book that's like fantasy coded, it just hits different. Like the stakes are so much higher, the drama is so much more significant. As soon as you add a life or death element into a romance, it's just 5-star book, best book for me of 2024. It just wouldn't have been right to give it to anything else so far. Okay, question number 2, favorite book boyfriend. This is so hard as like a romance reader, because there are just so many wonderful book boyfriends out there in the world. But I'm actually gonna give it to the male main character in the last book that I just finished. That is Justin in Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I finished this book only a few days ago. Oh my gosh, Justin. There are lots of other book boyfriends that I like fully have crushes on, like just as much as Justin, or even more than Justin, but there is no better book boyfriend than Justin. He is incredible. If you are an acts of service girl, the lengths that this man goes to, honestly, it's so fantastic. The way that he sprinkles like humor and care into everything that he does. He is just, yeah, he is the definition of, if he wanted to, he would. He does it all. He goes the extra mile plus some, and it's just so lovely to read about. And there's not a hint of, he literally does it just because he wants to, and just because he's that kind of guy. And if you haven't read Just for the Summer, read it. You'll love Justin. He is flawless. Okay, next question. This is a good one. Best sequel of the year. This is also hard because I feel like I've read so many sequels this year, but I feel like this is just, there can be no dispute on this one. I won't hit any other answers for this one. And although I felt tempted by some other series such as Chestnut Springs, this one takes the cake. And that is, of course, Throne of Glass. This series, it is the best series I've ever read. A true epic fantasy adventure that just had absolutely everything that you could possibly want in it. The found family is incredible. The sprinkles of romance are fantastic, but just the magic, the adventure. Anyway, if you know, you know, and if you don't know, why not? It's time to read Throne of Glass. Okay, next question. What is a new release you haven't read yet but want to? This is also a very easy answer for me because the answer is definitely Reckless. But I can't read Reckless because I haven't yet read Powerless. Reckless is the second book after Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I just haven't got to this yet. I'm so excited to read it. So many people say that it's just an absolute 5-star fantasy read, and I really feel like I'm starting to crave it. I'm getting closer and closer to reading it. I don't know what my hesitation is for picking this book up, but I'm so excited to read Reckless. People have been literally frothing at the mouth to get their hands on that brand new book. I think it literally only came out about a week ago, so I really need to make sure that I get to Powerless so that I can pick up Reckless. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Easy, no brainer, don't need to think about this one whatsoever. It is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. Elsie Silver personally has written me a book for my birthday. My birthday is the 5th of September, and she knew that I needed a book for my birthday to celebrate me turning 30. And so she wrote Wild Eyes, and she's releasing it on the 3rd of September, which is 2 days before my birthday. And she's just so generous, I'm so grateful. Anyway, I'm so excited to read Wild Eyes. I absolutely loved Wild Love. I feel like it's right here somewhere. Look at Wild Love. I mean, the cover is just stunning. The cover for Wild Eyes just also looks incredible. The two are gonna go together so nicely. It's set in the same universe as Rose Hill. I loved Chestnut Springs. I loved Gold Rush Ranch. I'm already loving Rose Hill Ranch. It's gonna be fantastic. I have no doubt about it. Next question, which book has been the biggest surprise of the year? This one was quite hard actually, but I think I'm gonna have to give it to Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've read 2 of her other books. I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. I read them both a few years ago, I think basically when they first came out. And I hadn't read anything since. And honestly, I didn't even know that Malibu Rising existed. So I picked it up with very little knowledge of what it was about. And actually, I only picked it up because I was going to read Carrie Soto's Back and then realized that these two connected. And one of you mentioned to me that I should read this first. So I picked it up and I dove into it. I knew very little and I just feel like it knocked my socks off. So it's not that I was surprised to read a TJR book and I absolutely love it. I just felt really, really unique to me. Everything was so well done. I haven't read a book like it at all. I've been in such a routine of reading so many contemporary romance books just back to back over the last couple of like summery months, and to just read something completely different that just felt like a completely unique book, and it's just got all the sunshiny summer vibes. So if you're looking for something summery that isn't a romance, that's just a little bit different and will leave you thinking about it for days afterwards just because of how like brilliantly it was done, this is the book. This is the book for you. So yeah, Malibu Rising, my biggest surprise of the year. I just was not anticipating this book whatsoever. Okay, what is a favorite new author, debut, or an author that's new to you? Well, this one is also a little bit difficult because, to be honest, this is the year that I've turned into a bit of a feral reader, so many of these authors are new to me. But the one that I've gone for is Emily Henry, and specifically Funny Story by Emily Henry. But in general, Emily Henry was a completely new author to me. I hadn't read any of her books before. I don't even feel like I'd seen many of her books before. I truly must have just been living under a rock before this year. I have genuinely enjoyed every single one of her books. There is something so atmospheric about the way that she writes that even when there are characters I don't especially enjoy, or there are situations or circumstances that just like rub me up the wrong way or niggle me, she still executes it so fantastically well. She's just one of those authors that I think it's highly likely I will pick up almost all of the books that she writes, just because I'm so interested to read her writing. And in a way, I feel like her writing and her writing style is just as unique as the stories that she chooses to write about, which kind of just says everything for me in an author, that I'm almost more excited to read the words that she chooses to use and her sentence structure and the way that she pulls everything together even more than the actual story and the plot. So yeah, Emily Henry is a new author to me, and Funny Story is the only one of her books that I've actually given 5-star, because that's when I really need everything to come together. Like, I need to love the characters, I need to love the plot, I need to love the writing. But as an author, I think Emily Henry is new to me and I'm thoroughly enjoying her books. Okay, next one. Books that made you cry. Honestly, I'm here for a good time. I read for fun and for enjoyment and for genuinely a good time. I'm not a sad book kind of girl, and any books that I see out there that are just like really devastatingly sad, they just don't appeal to me whatsoever. I probably, maybe at some point, I'll be feeling all up in my feels at that time of the month and I'll pick up a really sad book. But for now, at this stage in my life, I just want high vibes, high fun, high energy. However, that being said, there are 2 books that immediately come to mind that made me cry. The first monster of a book, which should come as no surprise to anybody that's read this series, and that is Kingdom of Ash. Every time I pick this up, I forget how like weighty this is. I read it on my Kindle, so I forget what a beast it was that I got through. But honestly, Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas is the ultimate emotional roller coaster. This individual book made me cry, but it's also just the culmination of finishing the, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like this 7/8 book series. All of it hits you at the end of this book, and and to make me even weirder, the acknowledgements section that Sarah wrote like for her readers in the back of this book honestly just had me bawling like a baby, which she like wrote to us as the readers, and it just really hit me so hard. And I just feel like I was teary and cried for like honestly days after I finished this book. And of course there is like specific scenes in this book that it's almost impossible not to be in tears. But anyway, Kingdom of Ash definitely made me cry this year, and I don't regret it for a single second. And then the other book that made me cry this year for very different reasons is actually The 7-Year Slip. This was my first Ashley Poston book. I'm so excited to read more of her work, because if any of it is half as magical as this, I know it'll be fantastic. But this book, I don't know, it did something to me. It hit me in the feels in like such a major way, and I fully cried when I finished it. You know, you just close a book and it's not even like one particular thing in the plot that happened, and there's nothing particularly sad or like anything. It felt so overwhelmingly like perfect that I just burst into tears as soon as I closed the book. So 7-Year Slip, add it to your TBR. On the flip side, books that made you happy, or a book that made you happy. And for me, I just had to choose Heartless by Elsie Silver. These books are the definition of a good time. I'm not going to go on about them. You know how much I love Chestnut Springs, and in particular, the female main character in this, Willa. She is just so much fun. It's impossible just not to have the best time reading this. I was laughing out loud, I was giggling, I was kicking my feet. Happiness and joy and sexiness and fun and just all the good vibes in this book. Most beautiful book that you've bought this year. So I don't actually have any like special editions or any kind of like fancy copies of books. But that being said, I don't feel like I need them, because when covers this stunning are created for the originals, I mean, what? This cover of Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross is just, it's beautiful. I also think that the cover for the second book, Ruthless Vows, is also stunning. Ruthless Vows as an actual book was not one of my favourites, I have to be honest, but I do really strongly recommend Divine Rivals. It was another 5-star read for me this year, but that cover. I also have to say that the House of Earth and Blood and the House of Sky and Breath paperback covers that I've got, I also think are so, so lovely. And here's the other one. This one is not as pretty as the first one, but they are honestly absolutely stunning, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the Flame and Shadow paperback when that eventually comes out. Okay, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I would say there aren't necessarily any books that I need to read by the end of the year. There isn't necessarily like a release that I know that's coming out in 2025 and I need to have gotten to that book before I get there or anything like that. But 2 books that I really, really want to have read by the end of the year, because I'm very excited to read them. I genuinely think I'll enjoy them, and they also risk being the types of ones that I'll continue to put off. I need to make sure that I don't. Are Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Honestly, I don't think I've ever heard a negative review about this book, which feels incredibly rare, but I honestly just don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything negative. It's also one of my best friends, Ben's, like favourite book in the world. He's read it like 1,000 times and just loves this entire series, so I really need to get to it so I can talk to him about it and I can understand the hype that he's on. But yeah, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. And then the second one is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Again, I know there's a Netflix show, but everybody says read the book first. I definitely need to, I definitely want to. I genuinely think I'll really enjoy it. The description of the book, the fact that it's kind of like a fantasy heist type story, just sounds so much fun. So yeah, Six of Crows and Red Rising are two books that I really, really want to have read by the end of 2024. And hopefully I'll get to them in like the autumn, winter, Christmassy period. I can kind of foresee myself reading these. Which books do you want to reread this year? Honestly, I'm not going to put much store on rereading books. I feel like I'm just entering this entire book universe and I want to spend more time reading new ones than rereading them. But if I had to choose one, and that I am genuinely tempted to reread when we get into cozy autumn season, it has to be The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is definitely one of my favourite books of the entire year so far. It was so magical and so wonderful, and the thought of spending cozy season getting lost in a fairy tale is so unbelievably appealing to me. So if I do get tempted to reread anything this year, it might be this series or even like just this book. I might just dive straight into the second book and reread this because I miss Jax and I think about Jax at least once a week. Next up is a book that you've enjoyed with mixed reviews. For me, that just had to be Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I thought this book was so fun. I read this immediately after I came out of my SJM universe, and this was the perfect thing to get me over the slump. I love Ali Hazelwood's writing. Some of her other stories I just have struggled with a little bit, but there was something so funny. I remember actively laughing out loud when I read this book, but her writing is always so funny, so fun, and I loved the whole werewolf vampire concept. It had me back in like my Twilight era, and I know some people are just like forever haunted by like the smut scene because of the concept of knotting, but honestly I wasn't mad about it. Like, that's werewolf lore. Like, I can't remember what it's called. Is it called the Omegaverse, I think is what it's called. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I know I've seen so many reviews of people being like, are you well if you enjoyed this book? Maybe I'm not well, but I loved it. 5-star predictions for the rest of the year. Honestly, this is so hard because I just don't want to set myself up for failure. I think the only book that I genuinely feel confident I'll give 5 stars to is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver that's coming out. The other book that I could give 5 stars to is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, but in my head that's going to be more of like a 4 to 4.25, maybe 4.5 read. Maybe that's too harsh. Maybe I will just like love it and it'll be a 5-star, but yeah, I think the only 5-star that I fully got for the end of the year, Wild Eyes, Elsie Silver. But let me know your 5-star reads so that I can add them to my list, because my TBR for the second half of this year is actually very short. I need to do some book hunting to find myself some good stuff to read the second half of this year. Okay, and then the final question is, how many 5-star reads have you read this year? And honestly, I am fully aware this is kind of an insane number, but this is the beginning of my book journey, and so I've obviously had like so many books to choose from, and obviously I've chosen the ones with like the best reviews and the ones that have been most highly recommended. So I am very aware that I will probably never have a year as good as this, or I will never have a first 6 months as good as this. But I have 19 5-star reads for the first half of this year out of 44. That's like 50% almost of my books this year with 5-star reads. That feels so stupid to me, and like I am not being a harsh enough critic, but I'm going to very quickly rattle the names of my 5-star reads off as a list. If you have any more questions about any of them individually, let me know. But yeah, I honestly just don't know how to dock any of these to be less than 5 stars. Okay, these are not in chronological order from when I read them, but The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber, from the Throne of Glass series, Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash were all 5-star reads for me. From the A Court of Thorns and Rose series by Sarah J Maas, Mist and Fury, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and A Court of Silver Flames were also all 3 5-star reads for me. I also personally loved Crescent City and Sky and Breath, and Flame and Shadow were also 5-star reads. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross was also a 5-star read for me. From Elsie Silver's Chestnut Spring series, Reckless, Heartless, Powerless, and Hopeless were all 5-star reads for me. I potentially could dock Hopeless a tiny little bit, but I don't know, when I think back to it now, I do think it was a 5-star. From the Gold Rush Ranch series, A False Start was definitely a 5-star for me. I loved Griffin so much. Funny Story by Emily Henry, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and then Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. They're all fantastic books. I can't, they're all 5-star. I don't know what I can do about that. They're all 5-star. Anyways, that is 19 5-star reads. What can I say? It's just been a truly, truly incredible first half of 2024 reading experience. Honestly, I'm feeling like I'm just winning at life. Why does a good book make you feel like that? When you read a good book, you just feel like you're winning. Like, just life is just going your way because your books are fantastic and they're feeding you with so much. Oh, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, I love watching these videos. I hope you enjoyed watching my version of my mid-year book tag. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've talked about in this video and let me know what you thought of them. Also, let me know if you've got any 5-star reads that I haven't read yet or that I haven't mentioned in this video, because I need some good books to read for the second half of the year. I need to build out my TBR list. I need to do a big bookshop at some point, so I feel like I'm actually gonna allow myself to do a bit of a haul in a couple of weeks. I'm actually going away on holiday in just a couple of days, but once I get back, it's definitely book haul time. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry if you could hear my neighbours drilling very loudly throughout that entire video. Fingers crossed that you couldn't. I certainly can. It's drilling into my brain. But anyway, I hope you'll have the best week. Thank you so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one. Bye guys.